Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am almost ready. Give me 1 second. Got my co-host Dan here. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute him. Hello, Dan. How's it going?
It's going all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I'm doing pretty good. Also, hey Aura, welcome. Hope you're having a great night. I feel like I'm on brand today for today's episode. I'm wearing my Pizza Planet shirt.
Wow, I'm right there.
Yes, Emily, you are right in frame of my camera. If you did not know, now you know. Thank you. The shirt's great. Rosebell says hello. Hey Jay, what's up, man? Aura says hi.
Hi.
Well, everyone's just popping up to say hi all of a sudden. But yeah, I'm on brand. I got a Pizza Planet shirt on. You have a Breaking Bad shirt on, it looks like?
Yeah.
I have an Inspector Wells shirt on.
Yeah, peep my merch. Exclamation point merch in the chat. Gotta sell more shirts. Okay. That's enough showboating. So yeah, I guess before we get started, how have you been? How was your weekend?
I'm unemployed because I ran a movie theater during COVID time, so the weekend is just more time spent in the ether, playing a lot of Destiny, rewatching Breaking Bad, wearing the shirt to rep Breaking Bad because you watched like 2 episodes and went, it seems fine.
Well, okay. Before like everyone in the chat goes to like drag me outside and just like kick me a couple times, I watched 2.5 seasons of Breaking Bad, and in fairness, your version of "it's just fine" is probably pretty spot on for how I felt about it. So,
well, it's fine. I just wanted to do the swerve from before, saying like I won't bring it up, and then doing that live. That'd be fun.
Yeah, you got me. you got me. It's a topic we'll have to have at a later date. Definitely.
No, it's fine. I'm just starting season 3, and I understand maybe wanting off the ride.
Yeah. Wait. What did you ask me, Emily?
So why is there so much Breaking Bad talk today? Weren't you just talking about it with your boss earlier?
Yes, I was just talking about it with my boss earlier.
It's too much.
Yeah. No. We'll save that for another conversation.
Coming in low, Kyle.
You're still coming in low? Okay.
Yeah. See if there's something on your end because I'm the max volume here. I can get closer.
You should be a lot better.
Talk louder.
I had you at like 50% on my Discord.
Oh yeah, no.
So I put you back up to 90, so you should be a lot better.
All right. Hopefully it sounds better, everybody.
Yeah, they should be able to. Way better. Okay, awesome. Cool. These are the technical difficulties we have to work out as we slowly expand.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, and we actually have like production notes in a format for today's episode, so that's kind of cool. Thank you to my mod, Big Gaming Robot. He formatted the entire thing for me after I sent him the notes that I had, so that makes it a bit easier for us to talk about. So yeah, introductions. Dan used to work at a movie theater, and I also used to work at a movie theater, and we'll leave it at that. That's probably the best way to describe ourselves.
Yeah, it kind of. That's all that needs to be said, I suppose.
We love movies, we love games. That's the reason we're here for this. So I guess before we fully get started, I already asked you what else was going on. I guess a slight...
Literally nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing. A slight recap and small update of the podcast for last week. Last week we talked about Ghost of Tsushima Act 1. I played a little bit more. I'm about halfway through Act 2. It is still probably my favorite game I've played so far this year, without a doubt, I think. Unless, like, Cyberpunk comes on in and, like, blows my mind, it might be my game of the year.
I think Cyberpunk's kind of everyone's question, because I just need to get hands-on with it. Because that's the other thing, is I know I'm going to buy it and play it, so I know it's going to be in consideration for my game of the year. Because, like, it's going to be a top 10 list, I assume, and...
Yeah.
I guess that's a separate conversation, but have there been enough games to populate a list yet? Or
I don't know.
I don't think Avengers is a shoe-in, but there's not a ton of games that...
Yeah, I think we just have to wait and see, because there's really... There hasn't been enough. Like, I bought a $5 game last night to play with some of my friends, and that $5 game is probably more fun than I've had with, like, most AAA games in the last couple of years. It's called Amongst Us. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
So you're on a spaceship with, like, 5 to 10 other people, and one of you is the imposter, and you have to sabotage or kill the other crew members while they try to repair the ship.
Okay, so it's like a more FTL version of that one Jackbox game.
Yeah, kinda. And then then you can, like, accuse someone of being the imposter and so on. How weird is it that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a valid argument? I mean, I haven't played that, so I feel like Dan, you probably have a better opinion on Final Fantasy VII.
I do. It's like in contention for my game of the year. I want to play the Battlestar board game, so I got distracted by that as well from the chat. But yeah, for me, it's between Ghost and FF7. Yeah, I also played the original FF7 growing up, so it's like when I liked Avengers Endgame, it's also because I've been reading comics forever, so it's like, this is more than just that movie to me.
Yeah, same.
That's what FF7 is to me, but also Ghost of Tsushima is really good.
That's how I felt with Endgame, is I've also been reading comics, probably not as long as you, maybe a little bit less, but that the feelings definitely were there, and I think certain games kind of give that to you sometimes, and I think Final Fantasy VII is for sure that game for a lot of people.
Yeah, it'll be interesting come end of the year to make like a list for the show, like a top 10 list.
Yeah,
or something.
Definitely, that'll be fun. So quick updates for the podcast. I do have a YouTube channel. I don't have, like, a command for it yet. I'll do that later. So if anyone ever misses an episode, they can go to my YouTube. They can subscribe, click the stupid bell for notifications if you're really that cool of a person, and you'll know when I upload new videos. I'll also have other content there soon. I have 2 Let's Plays I have planned. I want to do the Hitman one with Dan with me on commentary, and then a Halo one with our friend Mike as well. And we'll go from there. It's Inspector Wells. If you just search Inspector Wells on YouTube, you should be able to find me. If not, I'll get a link for it in a little bit once we're more in the discussion. Okay, fine. I'll grab it now. Also, Dan,
looking forward to.
Yeah, what? Did you know that there are other frames per second podcasts on the internet?
It seems like a very easy name, so yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I was doing some looking, and I'm like, oh shit, there's other podcasts with this name. Interesting. None of them are relatively big enough for me to care, so we're good.
Yeah, I don't think we're at the monetization real stage. So
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I have in my notes is, what are we excited for? I guess Avengers. Are you excited for that game? Because I'm kind of like in the middle for it.
I'm excited to play as SpiderMan. I'm going to buy it on PS4 now.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that discourse erupting, because there can't be a quiet week in video games.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that happen, and I don't know how to feel other than this is the only frames per second podcast sponsored by Shame. That's accurate. I don't know how to feel other than exclusives need to go away after a certain point. I get, like, console game exclusives because they own those studios. That makes the most sense in my head. But things like DLC exclusives or stuff like that, I think just needs to evaporate eventually.
I see the point, but as someone who's been on PS4 the whole time, I've just been expecting something like this, because they had said at a previous conference, like, they have a special surprise for that platform, and, you know, I saw this one coming more or less, but also since I had a PS4, all the exclusive like DLC and things like that was on this platform. I had a 360 previously, so I don't know if it's one of those I'm just used to it things, but I don't hate, exclusive.
Yeah.
Because in the end, this is the first time I think that it's mattered since Catwoman I think was pre-order DLC for Arkham City, and that was story stuff.
I think it's
Usually
the.
it's just
I think
when it's Spawn or Link or whatever, it's one thing. But this, I mean, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Kind of a big one for people who want to buy an Avengers game before Hank Pym or Hawkeye are announced. It's that you don't get to play as Spider-Man because you want to play on PC, which is If everyone, if it was like
if everyone got their own, it would be okay. Like if Microsoft gets like Black Panther or something specific to them, that's cool.
Suriel Vasquez tweeted like it's simple, just put Goku in the Xbox version, and so I want that. Put Goku in. He's an Avenger.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like if it wasn't Spider-Man and it was any other superhero, I guess I wouldn't care as much. But it's also, we're in this boat because Marvel was almost at the door of bankruptcy back in the day, and selling the rights to make films of characters, I assume, netted them some quick profit to stay afloat until Disney was able to buy them for however much it was.
And it's weird how much Sony latched onto that like partnership, like even the PlayStation 3 font being the Raimi Spider-Man font and everything being.
Yeah, it's
it's a Sony movie, so you can show it as hey, it's a Blu-ray, it's playing on our system.
Oh, they sold Spider-Man to start the Iron Man film? That's actually shocking. I didn't know that. Huh. Interesting. That's interesting to know. That's a whole other topic for a different day. And I guess for next week's episode, you had an idea of what we wanted to do. Do you want to announce that now or save it for later?
Okay. I'll do it now. So I think it's somewhere around now is the 20th anniversary of the first X-Men movie. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of X1, X2, and X3 and rank them. Because there are 3 movies with a lot of decent performances and just a terrible director no matter which movie you choose. Just a terrible person. So we can take that into it and look at how, compare the movies from like when we first saw them to now looking back and, maybe they've aged poorly.
In my head, X2 is still going to be the best one, but we'll find out.
I feel like that's a spoiler, but probably.
Yeah, it's Bryan Singer does the first 2, and then what's Brett the tool? Ratner. I was about to say, what's the tool that does the third one?
Yeah, Brett Ratner.
Brett fucking Ratner. Okay, this all makes sense in my head. All right, hang on. Let's catch up on chat really quick. What do we have to do to get a cover of the '90s X-Men animated theme during the stream? So I can do it. It's just one of 2 things will happen. Either my Twitch VOD gets flagged, or my my YouTube VOD gets flagged, or both at the same time. One of them will happen.
You just have to do the Vanilla Ice cover version of it.
Where you want us to do it? Okay.
Drop it for 2 beats and then continue it, so it's just not enough to get flagged.
We could consider potentially doing us humming the theme of the X-Men song.
We're never gonna. Oh.
That's maybe. I'll think about that. There might have to be some goal you all have to do to obtain that kind of goal. I still don't know how Bryan Singer has been blacklisted. I'm pretty sure he's actually blacklisted by now. That dude is like super.
You would hope so, but Woody Allen still makes films. Roman Polanski still wins awards.
Yeah, Robert Polanski won Best Director back in like 2003 or 4, whenever The Pianist came out.
He won something like. I was working at the theater, so like within the more recent couple of years.
Yeah, he's got stuff coming out all the time. Here we go.
Right.
If you go to Bryan Singer's Wikipedia page and you look at Dark Phoenix, which came out in 2019, removed from production and credits amid sexual assault allegations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was removed from Bohemian Rhapsody. I forgot about that.
We'll get into this on the whole X-Men thing because I feel like we're just going to talk about the same thing again.
Oh yeah.
We're here to talk about something. Kyle, why don't you segue?
So I got to pick the topic for today's episode, and we are going to talk about the Indiana Jones movies. Growing up, these held a special place in my heart. At one point, I wanted to be an archaeologist because I thought it was the coolest thing, and then I learned it's super fucking boring. But it gives you that... It's one of those great set-piece movies that has awesome action, and I'm just excited to talk about it. We've got a bunch of unique things organized for it that we want to discuss. Do you have any opening thoughts on it?
So for me, I don't know, Indiana Jones is kind of like Star Wars for me in that I just grew up like already. It feels like something I already had watched. Like it's just always been a part of my life, or at least formative years. So at least the original those three movies, those are all, they hold a place of nostalgia, I guess.
Yes.
It's weird. It's interesting.
Well,
I think they're all indicative of like how filmmaking changed from like the Star Wars era going forward, trying to think maybe some of Spielberg's stuff being more roller coaster ride, like action.
Yeah.
Segueing into the J.J. Abrams style of like, there's stuff happening, we gotta move.
Yeah, and we'll get into that more, especially with Temple of Doom, because I think Temple of Doom probably has the best sequence that truly depicts that roller coaster ride scenario you're talking about.
It's pretty much literally a roller coaster.
Yes, we'll get there. So we've got some bigger picture things to talk about. That's what we'll call these. So these are kind of segmented out, so we'll do the bigger picture stuff first. So one of the things Dan showed me was a black and white version of Raiders of the Lost Ark that was a redone cut version by Steven Soderbergh and music by Trent Reznor. If anyone wants the link to that, I can send that to you via DM, or if someone
I'll find it.
Yeah,
I'll find
it. It was a unique viewing experience for me because there's no dialogue, it's just the music and it's just the movie itself. And I thought the grading to change it from color to black and white was done very tastefully and actually gave a almost like a even more, like the movie already is a classic in its own right, but it gave it that classic look to it almost of black and white movies of of that time and era. And the score by Trent Reznor, it's more of that like Social Network sound to it, and not so much the Nine Inch Nails sound. And it definitely gives a different kind of vibe and tone to the movie overall. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it or not.
There we go. No, I didn't. I wanted to, but I didn't.
Okay.
Destiny. So, no, I think it's really interesting. I hadn't looked. He had done this for other movies as well. I'm always interested in, like, isn't it Topher Grace has, like, re-edited the Star Wars movies?
And The Hobbit. He made The Hobbit into 2 movies.
I'm sure it's still The Hobbit. I don't want to watch that. But, like, I'm always interested when someone takes someone else's work and kind of, like, that's a weird thing that shouldn't exist. So I enjoy the concept behind it, and I will watch it at some point.
Yeah, and the nice thing about, if you guys click on that link, it's almost like an essay about why he did what he did and the importance of it and the importance of the movie itself. It's a very good read, and it's an even better watch as well. So I highly recommend checking that out. If you've seen Raiders before, definitely watch that version. If you haven't seen Raiders, go and watch the classic, because it definitely is a unique experience that I highly recommend. But since you haven't seen it, we'll move on to the next topic, which is 80s movies and racism.
I think it's
which is a point you brought. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of some of the portrayals in like Temple of Doom specifically, I guess it's just interesting to see, because like Spielberg is thought of as just like, oh yeah, he's the greatest American filmmaker. Him or Scorsese are usually probably the people that are brought up.
Yeah, they're probably top 2.
Other examples, but what I mean is like, you ask a person on the street, like, who makes movies? They're like, Steven Spielberg,
James Cameron.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, okay.
That's a whole other conversation. But the point is like Temple of Doom is still probably the most problematic of the 3. Raiders is not too far behind it with its depiction of not even the Middle East, more of Cairo and that area specifically. But
it's just an interesting, because it's a snapshot of a time because it's like Star Wars trying to recreate like old serials from when they're kids.
Yeah,
so,
and I think it's to show how much like we've hopefully progressed, maybe not so much currently, but you'd like to think we've progressed as far as to we know better than to put those kind of things in our movies, because it just, Temple of Doom stands out so much in the wrong ways because of it. Big Trouble in Little China is another one. Which
another great movie.
Yeah, it's another great movie.
A lot.
The character Short Round, his name is like Data Wong in Goonies, if I remember correctly, and it's just stuff like that. And it just, I want to know when that
it's
stops.
It's for any cultural artifact, I suppose. Is just from it's made in its time, and you have to view it in that kind of lens. But it's interesting as we have more time pass, or I guess as people get more woke, as it were, like looking back on those movies that as a kid, you just watch and go like, yeah, no, this is normal. I'm sure this is what Indian people do, is eat monkey brains. And then you go to public school and you never learn that they don't.
Yeah,
So-
and I don't think I ever truly believed that was real because of how like ridiculous it was. Because I saw RoboCop
Well, no.
when I was a little kid, so like my version of reality was pretty skewed at that point.
RoboCop is reality at this point.
I about to say we are living in New
Oh,
Detroit.
no. Is the statue built yet? I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be up.
Wait, are they actually building a statue of RoboCop?
Yeah, that thing passed. Like, the statue, I think, is done. I just don't know if it's displayed yet. I haven't checked in a while. But the last time the RoboCop came up, I looked it up.
If RoboCop was roaming the streets, I'd be okay. I'd be if it was that version of RoboCop, not actually what they wanted. But yeah, no, it's the dinner sequence is probably the most like ridiculous part of Temple. But we'll get into that more when we get into the discussions of the movies. Because it's like you said, it's a time and a place, and when you go and look back on some of these older movies, it's just weird to like the things you don't notice that you catch all of a sudden.
Oh, perfect. January 10th, 2020 is story about Detroit's RoboCop statue, a magnificent deception for 9 years now. It's nearly done. There we go.
Almost. That's what we can only hope for. So we can move along to one of the next ones. The Tomb Raider and Uncharted games and movies. What are your thoughts and opinion? Well, the Uncharted movie hasn't happened yet, but the games at the very least. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, it's interesting because Indiana Jones is one of those things that you can just tell, kind of like how Avowed, I think it was, at the Microsoft press conference, was like, oh, they're making a Skyrim.
Yes.
They got a magic hand and a sword hand. It's like, oh, they made an Indiana Jones. But a lot of people, like my roommate, for instance, doesn't care about Indiana Jones. Never grew up with the movies, doesn't care about them. So, like, those games are actively nothing. Damn. So it's interesting because they seem so based on, like, the lovable rogue, or Lara Croft's case in the new ones, just someone getting the shit beat out of them.
She goes through some shit.
Yeah. It's just interesting that it's stuck around as, like, a framework of, like, adventure movie for even, like, Romance in the Stone or other Owen Thunderguns from Jurassic World. Like,
Yeah.
characters like that are just he's a Han Solo, Indiana Jones type, where it's like, okay, so you just want Harrison Ford back, want movie stars back when someone had the charisma to be like, oh, I'll see that new Harrison Ford movie, as opposed to I don't know if there are many actors now that have the heat of Harrison Ford in the 80s.
I don't think there are any true.
Like, is there a better run of any actor?
Will Smith.
Like, that's yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's a conversation. I'd have to look at a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dying breed of like A-list blockbuster actors, I think started in the like early 2000s. Because
didn't expect a counter so fast.
Oh yeah, I can argue Will Smith. Will Smith's an easy one for me to argue. Wild Wild West is a bad movie, but after that dude just is like hit after hit after hit. In terms of box office success, up until a certain
Jersey
point.
Girl's in there too.
It's a cameo. It don't count. But no,
He tells himself at night.
probably.
Doesn't count.
I think if you were to have that conversation, Tom Cruise is probably the last true
And yeah,
is a box office draw at this point.
Yeah, but he's going to kill himself to be the last movie star.
Yes. Ren, thank you for the sub. I don't know why my audio still goes off for it. But thank you for the sub, man. I appreciate it. It supports the channel. Let's let this cycle through its noise. It takes a minute. It should be done right about now, I think. There we go. Okay. But yeah, so the Tomb Raider games, though, I think are loose.
Did you play the originals?
I played the first one, and I think it was the PS2, one of the PS2 ones. They have dumb names, and I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I had a demo disc, and then I didn't play any of them until Rise of the Tomb Raider.
That's the reboot sequel, correct?
Yeah, the second one in that trilogy. That's the first one I actually fully played.
Remember the M. Night Shyamalan movie he did where they hid he was the director? You mean all of his movies? that was too much of a dig at him. But you have to remind me of the name because I don't remember M. Night Shyamalan movies that well, which is probably a good choice. But yeah, Rise of the Tomb Raider I thought was more of a closer call to what Indiana Jones is. But Uncharted I think is the biggest. They just want it to be an Indiana Jones game.
Yeah, but I think at least that one I think pulled it off because After Earth.
Oh yeah,
After Earth.
Yeah, it's After Earth. I forgot about that movie.
Okay. But sorry, Uncharted.
Uncharted 1. We start with that one real quick.
Yeah, all right. That one I just remember mostly as like third-person action where like the 6-axis was their marketing thing.
Yeah.
It didn't really leave an impression on me, but 2 I remember literally starting it at like 7 p.m. and then at like 6 a.m. finishing the game in one sitting. Like, that game is incredible. And then I didn't like 3 as much. But I think all of them, they shine in the character interactions, which like Indiana Jones has in a way. Like, it has the kind of witty banter that we're used to in every Marvel movie now. But also, you know, it has the Uncharted thing of like, oh, he just killed 900 dudes to be here. It's fine.
Yeah,
So,
Nathan Drake
not
is
Nazis anymore, so you have to feel like, well, you killed 7 human beings.
There's Nazis
maybe
in the first
blue
game.
Guys. Yeah, well, I thought they were like World War I Germans. I don't know.
Either way, they're in
They're zombies.
They're zombies.
So, yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I think that's the thing is like, you know, Indiana Jones has the artifact that may be mystical in some fashion, and you know,
Uncharted is just mystical.
Shambhala and
I mean, Temple of Doom is pretty mystical in a sense.
I'd say that's the one that I think maybe left the biggest impression on filmmaking going after it.
I mean,
certain aspects.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, because we were gonna go through all 3 of them. But yeah, I think those games do.
3 Indiana Jones.
We'll talk about Crystal Skull. It's in the notes. We'll talk about it. I have feelings about that movie now. But yeah, I do think those games, if you want like something that'll scratch that itch of adventure, those might be the best games for you if you want to feel like that rogue who is doing whatever the cause is for them, because Indiana Jones is more so about it belongs in a museum than anything else.
Yeah, which is a whole other thing too. Like, at least in Temple of Doom, it belongs back at.
Yeah,
Thank God, Palace.
Yeah, he's less about putting things in a museum at that point. In that movie.
So I guess at the end of it, none of them ever get put in a museum.
No, the Ark gets put in the warehouse.
Yeah,
the stones are returned. Yeah, and I think the Grail is lost at the end of Last Crusade. So
yeah, and then aliens.
Yeah, and then aliens. One of the things I have on here is what have we been watching? Well, we clearly watched the Indiana Jones movies. Anything else other than Breaking Bad that like rings out to you that's important?
No, still working my way through Arrested Development. Probably have more thoughts on that when I'm finally done with it. But,
okay. I rewatched the first Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I figure we'll do MCU stuff.
We'll
one episode. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that one holds a special place in my heart for a lot of scenes. I think it has the encapsulation of who Steve Rogers is when he jumps on the dummy grenade.
Yes, it is definitely I think it's the best of the outside of the Iron Man movies. It's the best of the Phase 1 movies for what it is.
With maybe one of the worst action sequences of just montage B-roll stuff of him kicking a guy.
It's good though.
I love the movie, but it's just it's the part where I remember in the theater going like, okay.
Yeah, I do.
Guess we have to get further on. Let's time skip.
Yeah, so time skip. I do wish maybe. No, I think the Russo brothers is right to go to the Russo brothers for the sequel, but that's a whole other conversation for a different day.
Then I think it's perfect for that, but also that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, anything else you watch?
Not really. I want to watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Emily at some point. And then Fight Club. Yeah, then Fight Club or Seven. I need to show her. So those are on my list. I'm trying to think. There's really nothing that I've been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, which I talked about the last time we were on here. I'm like halfway through season 1, And this is my
It's
first.
the one that even fans are like, you don't have to necessarily watch this one.
Yeah, I'm doing it for the fact I can say I did it. There are some standout episodes in it so far. I fucking hate Will Wheaton's character, Wesley Crusher.
Yeah.
This kid just sucks. He's just good at everything.
I feel like I could see a poster where it's just Wesley Crusher and it just says, this kid just sucks. It's like I'm straight up not having a good time, bro. Like,
and I don't get a clear sense of direction of this kid at all. And yeah, I've read that
it almost reads like a studio note of like, why isn't there a kid in there?
Yeah,
Whenever
so
Poochie's not around, there should be someone saying, "Where's Poochie?"
Well, yeah, it's basically my feelings towards it, and like I said, there's some standout episodes. I might watch the first movie for the Next Generation series, because why not? I know enough like loose things that it doesn't matter if stuff gets like spoiled or things like that. Like I know what the Borg is. I'm old enough to know what the Borg is, so like I don't care if like anything important gets ruined for me.
It's also funny in today's day and age where it's like, don't spoil this show from 1996 or whenever.
1987, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, literally, I did.
Off by a lot.
I like to do some deep reading at 2 a.m. because I get bored. At one point, there were 3 major Star Trek shows on network television at once.
Was it Deep Space Nine?
Yep.
Next Generation.
Yep.
And oh god, I can do this. Enterprise. Is Enterprise one?
No, it's Voyager.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten there. Oh, well, chat beat me to it.
Yeah, chat beat you to it.
Even with the delay, I think.
Yeah, so I did that. I rewatched the Chris Pine, the first Star Trek remake movie, the 09 one.
The Beastie Boys one.
Yes, and then I watched. I was at my mom's this weekend, and my stepdad was watching Star Trek Beyond, actually, coincidentally. So
the other Beastie Boys.
Yeah, the other Beasties Boy one. So I watched that, and I still think Beyond is probably the best of those 3, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I've been watching Star Trek. I've been getting really invested into Star Trek, and I'm really upset.
I'm sure someone else has a show that's just called Tangents, but we're really just tangents. So.
Yeah, my point is I'm really into Star Trek right now. Okay, I don't know how to control it. It's bad.
That sounds like the tone of voice of someone who's too into Star Trek right now.
I'll let you know who my favorite captain is in like a year or 2. I'll have a firm.
You're gonna show up in a Janeway T-shirt.
Yeah, I'll have defined opinions for everything. I rewatched all of the Next Generation. Deep Space Nine's the one I want to get into, but again, we'll get to there eventually.
I guess there'll be a Star Trek episode at some point. There has to be.
There has to be.
Oh, I'll have to watch all the Star Trek. All right.
Yeah, it's good. It's good background noise. That's the one thing I'll say. Like I played board games like Raiders of the North, which I got from Diversions, which Heat Strike owns and runs and operates. Check them out. Can get awesome board games from them. They ship anywhere within reason. So hit him up. He can hook you up on board games and Magic if you need that. But yeah, it's just good background show. Anyway, moving on to the next topic.
Yeah, I don't ever want to like take control, but I can do segues sometimes. Like this expert one. What do you think the last like adventure film was that really sparked? I don't know if box office or people or whatever, but really actually spoke to the nature of Indiana Jones. Because I can't think of something that really captures the adventure.
What's that? Like, it's a movie that Gormley likes. It's got Matthew McConaughey in it.
I don't have
Sahara, I think, is
Serenity.
What it's.
No, it's probably Sahara. The Mummy. Actually,
yeah, the Mummy franchise is a good. That's a good opinion.
Gaming in the chat saying the Mummy. That's.
Yeah,
they are also aping it, but they do it well enough. And Brendan Fraser and it's Rachel Weisz.
National Treasure. Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
National Treasure.
So National Treasure, the Mummy franchise, and Sahara, I think. No.
I'm still upset with so many Disney movies. No National Treasures. We should be up to our neck in National Treasures by now. We should be at 9. They should be crossing over with, I don't know what else does Disney own, Alien and Predator, and we should have just so.
I think they've tried with The Rock a few times, particularly with the Journey to the Center of the Earth sequel.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking of National Treasure with The Rock in it.
Oh
I was
shit!
thinking that for a bit, but yeah, no. Yeah,
I don't know what
Journey to the
Librarians
Center of the
is.
Earth, and then wasn't that originally Brendan Fraser? As
Yeah,
well,
yeah, that's
in
the thing is,
first one?
then I think Brendan Fraser went through his messy divorce of his wife, and he's like, well, I'm just not going to act, so you can't take my money from me.
Yeah, I read a whole article where a journalist goes and hangs out with the star and just writes an article about him because that's
Yeah, he
journalism. But
Brendan
he seems like a real actual person, and for me, I grew up watching George of the Jungle, so like that's my guy.
he's in
So-
he's forever either the dude from The Mummy or Encino Man to me. That's
I mean,
That's-
I watched Dudley Do Right. Like,
oh, I've seen Dudley Do Right.
yeah,
That's
I've
a
heard.
that's
Like,
I've seen Dudley Do Right. I've seen Airheads, and I've seen a lot of Brendan Fraser movies. Now that I'm thinking about it, I've also seen is it Bedazzled, Bedazzled.
oh, I always wanted to see that movie from just, hey, he's in it, and this is the premise. And I was like, that sounds like a good movie.
It's actually pretty
Never
good.
thought.
Oh, I've seen Monkey Bones. I win.
Oh, Monkey Bone. Yeah, all right, you do win. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. You win. I'm not coming. Nope. But he's also
Ink Heart's good.
He's the voice of a robot in Doom Patrol, I think. And I've
Yeah.
been meaning to look that up, but I don't know if it's HBO Max or some DC app or what. I just want to watch shows.
I think it's on. I think Doom Patrol's on HBO Max for anyone that cares. But yeah, that's kind of what Brendan Fraser's up to. But I think
It looks ridiculous. I want to watch it.
I heard it's good. But as I was saying, I do think he had probably had some of the more memorable like adventure movies with the Mummy franchise, and then Journey, and then like I said, they tried with The Rock a couple times, and it just really hasn't clicked. Except I think those Jumanji movies are okay, from what I've heard.
Oh yeah, those are. I don't know. I grew up with the Robin Williams one, and he's like one of my favorite people of all time. So that's hard to. Yes.
Yes.
I've seen the Scorpion.
I've also
I
seen
have
the
a box
Scorpion
set.
King.
I think what is worse for the Mummy series is I have a box set of the first two and the Scorpion King, and I watched all of them. And then they put the one out with Jet Li, and I just never saw it.
I was working at the movie theater when that came out, and I was super excited about it. And my former boss and your former boss's boss ridiculed me in front of everyone for being excited about that movie. And then I learned I could never share my emotions in that building ever again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the correct lesson to take from it. But, I mean, they're not like... I don't know, I feel like if you watch The Mummy and you come out like, that was a pile of shit, I'm like, well, what did you think it was going to be? Like,
Yeah.
10 minutes into it, you're like, oh, I see. And, like, you're either on the dumb ride or you're not. And it's...
Yeah,
But
it's
I think that's the thing is, like, even Indiana Jones, like, when you stop and try to think on these, like, just adventure movies, like, Mission Impossible doesn't count. It feels like it counts just because of the number of set pieces, but it's not like a Indiana Jones type thing. But the plot of that is never really the thing.
Isn't that basically the Indiana Jones series in general? Yeah, and that's
Exactly.
the only time the plot matters in Indiana Jones is the third one, and I think we'll get into that when we get closer to it, because that I think has the
We want to
most.
start breaking them down.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna put us on a quick break so I can get more water for myself, and if either of us need to use the restroom.
Water.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put the break screen on. I'm gonna play some music for you guys, and we'll be right back in about like 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll then get into the breakdown of the movies.
Hello.
Oh, wrong one. Hello, everyone. We are back. Pause the music. Okay, so I'm gonna let you lead the talking points for Raiders. Let you start off with that for us.
Sure. Real quick, Roadhouse in the chat. I've seen Four Brothers like too many times, which is, I mean, one is too many times, but I've seen that movie. It's so terrible. I mean, most Mark Wahlberg movies, not top tier movies, but oh god. Anyway, it's on to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't want to get to ranking first, so I guess what stands out to you about Raiders? Because to me, it's Marion, and it's the one bald Nazi whose face melts.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two central elements to what makes the movie work for me.
So the things that stand out to me are Marion. I think she is one of the few 80s female characters that's pretty well done and strong and independent for the most part. That shifts in the movie after a certain point, but we'll get into that in a moment. And then I think Harrison Ford doing I think majority of his own stunts in that movie. I remember learning about that when I was probably 13 or 14, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
It's definitely it reminds me of Schwarzenegger in the way that he has a certain punch that he throws.
Yes.
That even in Force Awakens he throws a punch where I was like, that was an Indiana Jones punch.
Yeah.
That's not what you meant to do.
Yeah.
It's just that cartoon thwack sound. I don't know. I really, like we said earlier in the show, that his run is unmistakable.
No, know.
I think
because you see it in you're fine. You see it in the Fugitive when he's running. I'm like, that's Dr. Jones running from Tommy Lee Jones.
I guess let's take it from the top. The plot, as remembered, opens with what I now know as Alfred Molina, and him going through and doing what I would love to know if I saw it first in UHF, with Weird Al parodying the weighing the object and rubbing his face before taking the idol. But still an iconic scene, and then the boulder.
I had seen Raiders first before UHF. Because
it's literally, they're probably neck and neck for me.
Yeah, the only reason I even ever saw
equally as important to filmmaking.
The only reason I ever saw UHF is because my uncle was a huge Weird Al fan when I was growing up, so he showed me that movie. That's the only reason I ever saw it.
I saw it on television.
Yeah,
probably a UHF channel.
Yeah, but the biggest thing for me, because we talked about this a little bit last night in the pre-show, is each of these movies has their own grand opening sequence, and I just remember the Raiders one because I'll share a fun story about me as a kid. I got in trouble on the school bus because I crawled underneath the seats. And when I got pulled out from under the seats, the bus driver was like, "What were you doing?" I'm like, "I just saw Raiders of the Lost Ark this weekend, and I thought I was Indiana Jones as the ceiling's collapsing on me." And I got written up so fast. And
that seems like something you should punish a child for, clearly.
My mom thought it was funny. The bus driver.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, the bus driver didn't, but that's whatever. But
I mean, if I was a bus driver, I'd be the crankiest son of a bitch.
Oh
God. So that's all I think about now whenever I see anyone else who maybe is rude. I'm like, well, would I be that level of rude in this job? And if I was a bus driver, oh God.
Yeah.
So I get it.
It's about how I would feel as well. But yeah, no. I think Raiders it's a game changer for a lot of what it does in terms of filmmaking at the time, because it's a low budget movie that doesn't feel like a low budget movie. I want to say it had a $10 million budget, not even, back in the day. I'll look it up.
That is 18 million estimated.
Yeah, which I
don't want to fact check. I just happened to. And then at opening weekend, it made $8 million.
What?
And
Times have
overall, yeah.
Times have
overall
changed.
Gross, though, overall gross, 248 domestic and 390 worldwide.
Yeah,
So,
it's
whatever that is in today dollars. I don't know.
I think
But
inflation for it's
definitely
pretty huge.
Definitely a big hit.
But yeah, I love the way it's filmed. It's got a unique use of practical effects, green screen, and some
And the music.
The music.
Another movie that just fucking elevated
when
by the
you
score.
when you hear that theme, the Indiana Jones theme, you know. But no, then it also has I want to say some of the like early use of CGI back in the day in certain sequences.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, the bald Nazi stands out the most as like disturbed
Yeah.
characters. And watching his face melt did kind of terrify me a little bit as a kid.
I think it really cemented in place my love of movies where like something just really fucked up happens out of nowhere. Because like if you're just watching Indiana Jones, because like I don't know, that was with Star Wars in movies that my mom was like, oh, those are movies. Like I don't know, I can't think of either of my parents being into like Star Wars or Indiana Jones enough, but those like box sets just wound up like, oh, that's a good thing for the house, like Back to the Future. Like
Cover your heart, Kyle.
you're not prepared for avert your eyes, like any of it. And also, I mean, I guess I'm not afraid of snakes. But definitely I wasn't prepared for the slow escalation in terms of like, hey, do you not like snakes? Then I'll wait for this movie.
Yeah.
That part, it's a good example of the setup payoff of like, snakes in with Jock, start the plane, Jock, and then getting all the way to why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah,
It's like, at least when I was a kid, was like, oh wow, no one could write something better than that. That's expert setup payoff.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I think is unique, if anyone ever wants to go back and look these up, Spielberg and Lucas talking about when they're first like building the movie and how they want to make the movie. There's a particular clip.
Okay.
It's the boulder sequence. It's where they talk about designing the boulder sequence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Spielberg was against doing the boulder because he didn't think it would work, and Lucas had to talk him into it and how to make it work.
Seems like Lucas, especially as you get to the prequels, was way more interested in the miniatures and like the cool little stuff that he could do than like the story and stuff like that, which works for like that boulder sequence is timeless. I think miniatures, especially if you're going in as a film fan and appreciating what it was, like a Harryhausen style effect still looks great.
Yeah,
Army of Darkness still looks great.
Miniatures, I can spot them now a lot easier now that I'm older and I know what I'm looking for. And I think in certain movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, they look flawless. But then I go and watch like a Star Trek, like Next Generation uses miniatures.
Well,
and
TV and movies, like I say, an $18 million budget is like how many seasons of the Next Generation?
So
a
each
lot of episodes,
one
not
season
there yet, but from what I've heard, a lot of them are like, well, what sets are available today? We're going to Western Town.
I mean,
like,
Star Trek has a $1.3 million budget per episode for the Next Generation, so 20 some episodes. It's about the budget of a movie, but they have to stretch it out though over
which is like 24 episodes, whatever insane amount.
But yeah, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you, do you think that Raiders feels dated at this point in life to a degree?
That's why I was trying to like tie it into Star Wars, is like it's not dated to me, but I grew up with it, so like it's not like The Sixth Sense even, where I can look back on it and be like, oh, that's an older movie, I felt this way about it. But Indiana Jones still, I really wonder how much of it is just the music, because like that in Star Wars, it's so tied into like,
I think for me it feels dated, but I can still appreciate it and enjoy it because Harrison Ford carries the movie and it has such a great soundtrack to it.
Yeah, and also it's filmed in a way like
it just moves,
just propels you from start to finish. All of the movies really are just like watchable movies. Like they're just aspiring to be the serials that they watched when they grew up. So it works that same exact way. Like I never watched the Young Indiana Jones show, but that makes total sense because it literally is just old serials. So it's fun in that aspect, especially once you get to the fact that like doesn't Temple of Doom take place before Raiders?
So yeah, Temple of Doom's a prequel, then it's Raiders, then it's Lost Ark. But that's
like if you really cared about that, then cool.
Yeah.
That never felt. It reminds me of Uncharted, where it's more about the person going through the events and not the events. Like there's no sky beam that's going to end the world.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Nazis.
Yes, there's a lot.
Aliens.
So Big Gaming Robot asked, wasn't Ford sick during the part of Raiders? Yes. There is a sequence in the Cario set piece where they're walking through the market and Marion gets kidnapped by some like henchman type characters, and Jones has to fight his way to get to her. During one of the fighting points, the dude like flashes his sword moves in front of Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones just pulls out his pistol and shoots him.
He does the whole elaborate sword thing, and then goes,
the rumor / I guess it's confirmed. I think it was confirmed. Is Harrison Ford was extremely sick that day. He only wanted to do one take, and that was his idea for the one take. And it's probably
the thing is, like, if that was nowadays, you'd be like, wow, that sounds like I don't know,
some asshole.
What actor is currently. Like, if it was Miles Teller, I'd be like, wow, what a douchebag. But for Harrison Ford, it's like, wow, that was incredible. Good work. Great.
Yeah, in today's, like, set, you would be told, unless you're, like, a Tom Cruise, a Brad Pitt, or some, like, major actor, you'd be like...
Like, he literally talks about, like, oh, didn't we date when you were, like, 16, 17?
Oh, I was going to get to that. Yeah, there's... that was one of my next things I wanted to bring up, is that line, I never picked up on it until I rewatched it with Emily last week, getting ready for all of this, and I heard that line come out of his mouth, and I'm like, oh, hello, why are we in this movie? What is going on here?
It's like during Yesterday, when that guy who makes the Beatles songs wants his brain, whatever Yesterday was about, he just sings She Was Just 17, if you know what I mean, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a totally normal song for nowadays. And it's like, no, like, certain things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
I'm more surprised that things weren't.
All
right.
And
it's interesting because I think there's a bunch of manuscripts of Spielberg and Lucas's like meetings writing the movie, and I don't have them in front of me because like I'm not at that level of show prep. But I do know they did talk about like, no, it makes it better if she's underage.
So
he's like,
I was gonna bring that up.
Transformers 4. The guy is like, no, in this state, actually, I can. I have consent.
I can tell you who said that exact phrase of what you're saying.
George Lucas?
Yes, it was Lucas.
Shocker.
Lucas actually wanted her to be like 15 or 14, and Spielberg was like, no, make her like 17 or 18. I can't. Not today.
What if she was just like immaculately conceived? Wouldn't that be fun?
That's a whole other conversation for a different day.
Little wings and she talked like this. It's Watto. What if she did Watto?
We'll get into that a whole other day. Not this one.
Oh God. Yeah, let's not. Yeah. But that's one of the elements that makes it feel dated, as it were. Just like, oh Jesus, that's a lot. Okay, that's called grooming, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think cinematically it's dated at all. I think certain movies are, like some of my favorite movies are, older films, and I think that the cinematography, everything came together with Indiana Jones the same way it did the original Star Wars, and just like right place, right time, everything perfect for that first movie, to me personally, and then we'll see how we talk about the rest of them. But I think this one is the perfect, like if I had to show someone, if they said, hey, why is Harrison Ford a star, I'd show them this movie, and I don't think afterwards they'd have any questions. I think they'd be like, is there a movie where he's the president and he has to fight everyone off his plane? And I'd be like, you're in luck, and we'd watch it.
I think if I had to show him a Harrison Ford movie, it would go Raiders, and then The Witness, I think is what it's called.
I'm thinking of the movie where Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley are Amish people.
Yes, I know what you're thinking of.
That movie you're thinking of.
No, I'm thinking of The Witness. It's where an Amish woman and her son witness somebody getting murdered, and Harrison Ford.
What that Jonathan Blow witness game was about.
And Harrison Ford goes into witness protection and becomes like lives on like an Amish farm and everything. You're both wrong, Blade Runner. That's all.
Fair. If they can appreciate film, I'd show them Blade Runner. If they're a normal person who's going to watch a movie, I show them Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
Blade Runner's amazing.
Yeah,
but, like, you have to appreciate, just like 2049. Sometimes you just got to look at old footage and like do detective stuff. But
I need second film.
Okay,
yeah, fair.
You can graduate to Blade Runner, but you do have to take some baby steps. It's like, hey, here's your first movie. Check out 2001.
Yeah, and Mike in the chat makes a good point. Action movies are still huge, but you don't see adventure movies much now. I think the closest thing to an adventure film, and you can ridicule me if you'd like, but the Fast and the Furious franchise, I think, is the closest thing to an adventure film at this point.
That's fair.
But
It's not even. I don't know why I'm deflated when I think about Fast and Furious. It's just such. It's almost like wrestling, where it's so dumb and it looks so fun. I'm just on the other side of it, so I have to be like, 9 movies. I can't watch 9 movies. I got like 23 movies to watch.
We said the Jumanji reboot definitely is probably the most recent adventure movie I could think of. They tried. He must have heard me say Sahara, and like part of his yeah, he just knew.
And Matthew McConaughey is actually here in the stream.
Yeah, and he just had to like run to the keyboard and be like, "They're talking about Sahara. I gotta go talk about it." I remember liking Sahara. I don't know if it still holds up, so I'd have to like check it out. But I remember thinking it was okay when I was like younger.
I'm trying to think of a McConaughey movie.
Laura, the Tomb Raider reboot was fine. But back to the Temple of Doom, really quick to tie it all up. When you look at like people like lists of 100 greatest movies, Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark is always going to be.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark is always going to be on that list, I think, because of just how culturally, how significant it is to film in general.
And so many things, and once again, I don't know how much of it is watching UHF, but so many things I've seen parodied in, whether it's Family Guy or The Simpsons, it feels like interwoven into like cinematic knowledge of like. It just all white British businessman who's showing up to go like, actually, I'm going to take over this land because we're the British. This time, you suck.
Yeah,
you're American. And you also suck.
Yeah. I think if you're able to be parodied by a Family Guy, a Simpsons, or Robot Chicken, or any of those things, I think that's how you know your product is made an impact on pop culture in one way or another.
And I think so many elements of Raiders. Like I'm trying to think of something besides the like weird underage stuff. Like if there's anything I'd change about that movie, and honestly, like I'd give Alfred Molina more lines.
Sure, that's got to be one of his like first roles. I think I'd have to look it up, but
yeah, no, it is. But he's.
There is something I would change, and I think it would probably change the entire structure of the movie, most likely, if that was the case. I think Marion shouldn't become the damsel in distress, kind of like she does in the second half of the movie.
I agree, but if we're going to... We'll save it for when we, like, rank them and I get all debate team about it.
Yeah.
But, like, for the Indiana Jones franchise, she's, like, the strongest woman lead who's not a Nazi.
No.
So, we'll... She's in the Indiana Jones scale. She is best, but could she use work? Obviously, it was 84
or 81. 84 is Temple, and then 89 is Crusade.
Nerd alert, right, guys? Like, you believe this?
Don't worry. All he has to do is ask me like what island they did what on in Jurassic Park, and I'll tell you it's Isla Sonar or Isla Nublar, whatever. The other one's Site B.
Don't they have like Dodson? Aren't they adding that guy into? All right, let's not talk about Jurassic.
Ooh, if you guys want to get me mad, we'll talk about Jurassic Park 2 and then Jurassic World 2. Those are 2 movies that'll trigger me. But
that'll be the bitter episodes where we have to watch JP 1 through 3 and then World and Fallen Kingdom for another episode. Because like, I don't want to do that, but like I'll do it because you'll hate it, so it'll be good. But I think in terms of like movies in that time, especially her character. I mean, it is kind of like a Princess Leia-ish, like, patter back and forth. But, I don't know, it's just it's ridiculous. And it's like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time articulating it because there's nothing...
The only other character...
bad about it. I don't want to say masterpiece because there's no perfect film.
No, it's...
What do you change about Raiders besides... giving a female character some agencies besides just being like, she's gonna die. You gotta save her now.
No, Raiders. I think
who cares about World War II? But she's gonna die.
Yeah, like you said, Raiders isn't a perfect movie, but I think it is almost the perfect blockbuster. I think that is Spielberg slowly crafting the formula of what the perfect blockbuster needs to be, and it started with Jaws. Jaws is the template. Indiana Jones is the proof of the formula, and then I think Jurassic Park is the deliverance on the formula of the perfect blockbuster. For me, at least, that's how I kind of view the growth of those.
Honestly, that's why I think it's interesting to talk about them, like looking at them in the framework of film and as an entirety, is because they do feel like like Star Wars, if I went back to like a average dude in the 80s and you're like Star Wars, you might hit someone that's super into it, but you might hit someone that bristles at it. Whereas Indiana Jones is like, hey man, he punches so many fucking Nazis, and it's usually a pretty good entertaining, so
if here's how I can tell if a movie's genuinely good or not. So my mother watches a lot of trash stuff, and I mean really bad B movies, and that's fine because I actually have grown like an appreciation for them because of her. However, I know when she when a movie's really good, I know she'll like it because she'll actually talk to me about it in like a more in-depth conversation. And growing up, the movies she would talk to me about were Robocop, Indiana Jones, and the Alien franchise. Those were like the big three I always heard from her.
Those are all like it's always good to hear someone has a good parent, makes good choices.
Yeah,
that's not even sarcasm. I meant the films are good, and then I realized like don't show Alien to a kid, but it's too late now.
Well, so. the funny joke is my mom went to go see Alien at a drive-in. I think it was Aliens at a drive-in with my two uncles at the time, and it was a re-showing of it because she was pregnant with me, and she like held a flashlight up to her stomach. It's like, look, it's a xenomorph. You're all gonna die. And I'm like, Mom, that's a terrible thing to say about me in the womb. That's terrible. She's like, no, you turned out fine. I was having fun with my uncles. Okay. That's fair.
I think it'd be worse to see Prometheus when you're pregnant.
Fuck.
But it's fine. Let's
Prometheus. No, these are all things we can talk about down the road in the show. Like these are.
Yeah, there'll be an Alien episode. There's gonna be a lot of episodes, but we'll get to those fights.
Did I turn out fine though? I turned out all right. I'm okay.
It's not the content's fault that he's garbage. That's his personality.
I'm just a grumpy asshole most of the time.
Grumpy Gus.
Yeah.
I'm a Debbie Downer in your.
I'm a grumpy Gus. Let's move on to Temple of Doom. This is the one I think we're probably gonna have the most discussion about.
Agreed, but real quick, I feel like we just didn't. That face melting is so good.
Oh,
like it's so good. It's like even now. It looks a little hokey, sure, but like it's fantastic.
It's probably
didn't specifically hammer home that part's worth pointing out.
It's still one of the coolest looking effects. I think it's cheesy looking now by today's standards, but if it was today's standards, they would literally just crumble into ash and become dust. This dude literally fucking melts on the screen. Yeah,
I don't know if they would have done that because I think that segues perfectly into Temple of Doom, creating the PG-13 line.
So Temple of Doom is PG technically, and Temple of Doom content-wise is not PG. It is PG-13 and maybe borderline R in a couple instances. The dude gets crushed by the steamroll thing, and you see his blood trail.
I was also thinking about the guy getting eaten by the alligators.
And then I think there's one point in Temple of Doom where Indiana is like literally taking a fucking hacksaw to the dude's stomach. You don't see it; it pans away immediately, but you know what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Temple of Doom simultaneously feels the most like fucked up, but also the most like wacky, like sitcom. Like the part where it's him and Willie going back and forth on like, should we fuck? And that's like the whole thrust of the story is like Three's Company shit. So I don't understand.
Austin Powers.
And also, and Will Ferrell gets very badly injured.
He does get very badly injured. So let's see here. I'll highlight one of my talking points for Temple of Doom right now. Willie sucks. Fuck Willie. She is a terrible character.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I understand the audience inserts where it's like, oh, how would you feel? And like if I was there, I'd be Willie. I'd be screaming if we jumped out of a.
Oh, I'd be her too.
Yeah, but you know what's not fun to watch? Willie. Especially when it's like, was she like a great actress? And you're like, I don't know, she seems fine.
She's there.
Was she dating the director? Yeah.
They got married like 6 years later after this movie. So
yeah,
they're still
going through a divorce with his previous wife during this movie, which is why it's a bit more callous and harder than the other ones. I think. Willie is just there. Like I really, there's no incisive commentary. She's just, an elephant. I need to. That's true. American Tail. All right, we'll do an American Tail episode too. All 5.
Oh Jesus. But yeah, Willie's just she's not a great character, and I think the reason I feel that way is because you go from Marion, who feels strong in some one way or another, to this
competent up until she's kidnapped.
But then you go to Willie, who's just like show dancing, ja 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 ja, and doing the anything goes part of the opening sequence, which we'll get to the opening in a minute, but she just brings everything down because her only reaction is to scream and flail in panic over what is going on around her.
I think I'd really, really enjoy the movie if Willy was a Muppet.
Fuck.
Think of how good that would be if it just every time it's her going it's literally what?
Give me Kermit the Frog with a wig, just flailing around.
Yeah, someone who can.
You could do it.
It should be Miss Piggy, right?
No, Kermit would be better. Just
He's already. Well, yeah, it'd be better if it was Kermit, but it is. She is Miss Piggy.
Okay, Miss Piggy. Yeah, it is Miss Piggy.
Come on.
It's just.
Actually, what if every movie just had the Muppets in it?
That's a tweet I've seen a couple times. Pick a movie and replace all the human characters with Muppets.
I'll find that tweet. I'll say this movie. This movie would be better and less racist if they were all Muppets.
Oh yeah, we'll get into all this in a second.
Short Round is different from Willy.
Yeah, so let's segue into the opening of the movie then. Compared to the opening of Raiders.
I think it's interesting because it's really showy and it's fun and it's a very ridiculous of no, Dr. Jones, I expect you to die. I don't fault it in any way, but I feel like the Raiders one propelled forward into the crazy adventure, and then even I can't believe we glossed over his students that paint I love you.
Oh god, I forgot about that. Yeah, he's
but also he's Harrison Ford, so
once we've talked about
I get it.
Well, yeah, once we've talked about this one and Last Crusade, we can talk about Dr. Jones as a character and then go from there. So the opening sequence of Temple of Doom. It's fun.
The song and dance routine, it sets a weird tone because you're like, oh, this is going to be, like I said, wacky and madcap.
Yep.
But then it's like, all right, let's go to India. They're all starving here. And really, everything was fine up until the jewel got taken.
The
plane stuff is fun.
Yes.
Diving out of the plane is fun until apparently Mythbusters goes you die. It's like the Batman and Robin of adventure flicks. Yeah, it's so the tone is so modular. When there's patter in Raiders, you believe it and it feels that way. Whereas his chemistry with fucking Willy, I would love to have been Harrison Ford's friend and just been he comes into his trailer and I'm like, so what do you think of her? Because it does not seem. It reminds me of Blade Runner in that sense of oh, these two don't get along.
Yeah,
no.
It's wild when him and Short Round have better on-screen chemistry than him and Willy.
I don't think there's a good way to do. This is my small Asian boy friend. He's a friend who's a boy. He's not my boyfriend. I don't know if there's a way to do that and tell the origin story and not have it be well, why are you friends with a child? But that would have been more interesting. I come back to I think the Raiders, hey, it's the Covenant or the Lost Ark of the Covenant. That's a cool thing. What's this one about? It's a Temple of Doom.
One-Eyed Willie's Treasure. Is that City Slickers? That's a City Slickers reference, I feel like.
Yes, it is. It's just, it feels wackier. I don't know. I just... it's weird. Like I said earlier, it's a movie that I still like and enjoy. At no point during the movie I'm I wish I could be playing Destiny. But, it just falls flat in so many different aspects for me, from leaving that intro area to then going with Short Round and going through then the plane, then India, and then from India onward, I feel like it takes a turn.
I want to know, in the production of Temple of Doom, if there was maybe two ideas for the movie on the table, one that takes place in Asian culture and one that takes place in India, because they're in the same part of the globe to a degree, but they are very different ideals and cultures and settings and atmosphere. And the way you open up with the Chinese casino that they're in, because I think they're in Hong Kong, I don't remember. I just watched the movie last night. I don't fucking remember where they're at. It makes me wonder if there's maybe going to be two different... They had one way they wanted to go, but they decided to go the other way instead.
It reminds me of Return of the Jedi, where it's start here, do the sequence with Jabba, and then here's the second half of the movie. Or second, third. I would have to look at the runtime.
Well, yeah, because in Return of the Jedi, Princess Leia was supposed to... she wasn't going to be Luke's sister, I think, was the entire gist of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was... But I think it's cemented, like you said earlier, cemented into place, how not the Spielberg formula necessarily, but the blockbuster, like, okay, we need another one. All right, well, what happened to the girl from the last one? Well, this one took place beforehand, so we doesn't even know that girl yet. And in this one, stuff happens.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like
there's
it feels like the first instance. Maybe Jaws 2 is the first instance, but like one of those like, well, we have to make another one. You saw how much that made.
Yeah,
and then, like, it's still. Go ahead.
So I guess my feelings is the first movie establishes who Indiana is almost instantly. He's this dude. He's gonna go into this like ancient ruin. He's gonna take this artifact and he's gonna try and put it in a museum. And things happen around him, or people try to steal it back from him. This one, it opens up with him in a casino working with a gang mafia member doing like a trade for another like ancient artifact, and then results with them having to leave China to go to India. It just feels like a drift from who the character is supposed to be, but then you get back to who that character is once you're in India, but then that leads to the whole problematic atmosphere that is that whole film.
Yeah, it's definitely white savior trope.
You can't change the white savior trope, but if you told me it wasn't India and it was just some unnamed country, fine.
Well, I think it's also, like they're trying to do the throwback to that kind of a serial, so it would be more acceptable there. That's where it gets into a weird. Plus, it was the 80s.
Yeah,
it's definitely not. It's not a great depiction.
No, that movie, Temple of Doom, uses a lot of gross out sequences more so than the other two.
Oh god, I'll get there eventually. I just feel like there's some almost like some Marvel movies where like something will happen and then it's like, well, it's the prequels. I'm thinking of the prequels where a scene will happen and then you go like, well, we need something to fart because like the kids need to laugh at something. Or it's like the monkey brains. It just felt like here's this wall of bugs. She's got to reach in and hit this.
That terrified me as a kid. Actually,
it also terrified me, especially living in rural Ohio where a moth is just that size. No, I know moths are fine, but like no.
Yeah,
it's effective. Don't get me wrong, but like it just feels. I don't know. It didn't hit for me.
Yeah, and literally in the first half hour to 40 minutes, they are camping with their elephants and everything, and Willie freaks out because just nature is all around her, and she's this pampered white girl that's never left the city, and she sees giant bats and snakes, and she just screams. That's all her character does is screams, and that's her tone the whole movie. Then it's the same thing in the palace, it's the same thing in all the dungeon sequences, and it almost derails the movie for me, but it's saved again by Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford just again carries the movie on his shoulders. The dinner sequence, as a kid, I thought it was really cool and creepy. As an adult, I'm like, ooh, that's culturally insensitive. I kind of don't like this anymore.
Yeah, it's an interesting line to walk. Well, that's with going back to any old film. It's just like, what was acceptable even just a couple of years ago? It's interesting to watch how culture shifts that way.
Yeah,
definitely. It comes across as like touristy, like, and also that's the worst part is like it's not representative of anything. So it's like navel gazing at a culture that only exists in stereotypes that are built up by white people that make movies about like, let's go there and they eat weird food, and the kid like, That's what I mean. Is when it feels like a not for kids type thing. I mean, it is also for kids.
It's supposed to be for.
In that.
Yeah, I think their intent was for Indiana Jones to be for kids, and the movie is reflective of the climate at the time. Granted, it was still dark enough to warrant a PG-13.
Oh boy, yeah, American
being created.
That cannot have aged well.
No way,
have aged the poorest out of any film trilogy.
Oh, any of those late '90s, early 2000s movies have not aged well. But back to my point, though. There's a line that got cut out of the movie supposedly at the dinner sequence where Indiana makes the comment of, this isn't what people of this culture eat. I don't know who these people are. And that's supposed to tie into the cult that is doing all the evil things in Temple of Doom. I wish certain things didn't get changed, but I'm also not in charge of those movies, so that's... And also, I probably would have thought the same as they thought back in the 80s, knowing how the world works.
I'll say for me, the standouts for this movie is everything once you're in the weird cultist den.
Oh, once they leave dinner and he gets
the veil has been lifted and they're like, no, we love No, Kali Ma is just what they chant. I don't know what the name of their god was.
Kali.
Is it Kali? Okay.
I think, yeah.
Didn't-
Yeah. Once they start investigating and they go inside to the like secret room that's in Willie's room, and it just kind of spirals from there, and that's really where the movie is for me. That's the bulk of the movie that I like, because I think it's extremely fast, and it basically is a build, and then it's the roller coaster ride, like you said earlier in the stream.
Yeah, and it's one of those. I think an early example of just an action scene that just it starts to feel a little exhausting by the end of it, because you're like, all right, it just I don't know, it's not a long movie per se, but I just feel like things could have been tightened up more where it doesn't feel like, hey, we built this at Universal Studios, come check it out, it's pretty rad.
Yeah, the whole sequence on the minecart and the fight leading up to getting on the minecart is the best part of the movie for me. Him backhanding
For me, it's the bridge, but go ahead.
The bridge. Well, the bridge is really good. The bridge is a great. The bridge is a great sequence. Everything leading up to that, it's okay. It's building up though to what is going to be the roller coaster ride aspect of it, and it's got some really cool practical effects, just like the first movie, and then it has probably some of the worst CGI I've seen in a long time. There's a sequence where they get off the cart and the water's coming through, and they just like dart, like they have the force into like a little crevice in the wall to get out of it immediately, and it just looks bad. There's certain parts that look bad. Parts of it feel a little bit rough compared to Raiders for some reason.
It definitely feels like the one. I don't know. I can't speak to how they made it or anything. I haven't necessarily read what their retrospective thoughts on it, but it just really feels like, let's make another one of those.
Gracie
What's
Law versus Willie. Ooh.
I go Gracie because Big Trouble in Little China, they kind of know that she sucks. Like,
yeah,
how much some of those people suck.
I go
Willie. I just honestly like the actress is fine. Like, there's nothing like wrong with the performance. It's just the character that they gave her is just, she's a lady.
Yeah, Spielberg was like, you're gonna scream on screen. That's your role. Just scream.
Lady stuff over there.
Yeah.
Talk about how you miss your hairbrush like ladies do.
It is. It
would make sense if she was a lady in the 80s, but she's a lady in the 40s.
No, exactly.
Which still existed. I just, she seemed to have such a a Romancing the Stone 80s like lady attitude of like,
Romancing the Stone is such like, it's a love letter to the Indiana Jones movies, but it's also its own thing at the same time. And Sally Fields is really good in those movies, and so is Michael Douglas. I think Romancing the Stone has the benefit of two strong leads, whereas the first two Indiana Jones movies only have one really strong lead and just an okay supporting cast.
That's the thing, is I just Temple of Doom for me. Just overall, I love the climax. I love him in the middle of that bridge.
It's the best third act of, I think, the three movies for me.
I mean, I'll accept that. Like, I think that Raiders, like, even though it's not actiony, him figuring out and putting the staff in the thing and having the light shine down, I think it's more interesting than the Temple of Doom. The Temple of Doom sounds like. What was the Nickelodeon show? Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yes.
Like, it sounds like it's trying to come and see the Temple of Doom. 13 frightening floors.
Yeah, Indiana feels more like an intelligent character and not just an action-y brute like he does in Temple in Raiders. So Raiders, he, like you said, does the staff, and like you see his like mind working while also being able to do all the action sequences. And Temple is. No, go ahead.
It'd be interesting if, like, they made it a prequel for a reason and they showed something in his character changing. But, like, if it's supposed to be him going, like, instead of giving it to a museum, I should give it to the culture that they should have, like, their relics back.
Yeah.
Like, that's not ever anything hammered home that he didn't do to then do. Like, there's not really an arc, but then again, not many of these movies are about an arc, per se. They're more about the viewer, having fun. I don't fault Temple of Doom for just being Temple of Doom.
That it took love for me.
That's true. He is a professor who
Yeah,
he doesn't. It's kind of like Batman, where he doesn't ever show off his smarts a lot.
yeah,
But he does in terms of the Uncharted style, like, oh, this is from 13th century Mongol China.
yeah.
Oh, you don't read ancient Sumerian? Let me just do this.
Yeah, when we get to Crusade, I think that is a good point that Gormley brings up. Is he actually feels like a professor in the third movie? But I guess for me to close with Temple, like I said, I think it's the best third act. And do you remember going to like Cedar Point as a kid at all?
Like, I went to Six Flags because
okay,
it's cheaper.
Yeah, okay. I went to Cedar Point a couple times, and this is like 2001, 2002. I'll have to see if my mom still has it. You could have your face photoshopped onto a celebrity's face. There is a...
I bet it was great.
Oh, it looks fucking awful. I think I was like 13 or 14, and it looks really bad.
Just like Harrison Ford already, so that's a 1-to-1.
Yeah, so it's my face photoshopped onto Harrison Ford's face while he's standing on the bridge with the machete and everything. And
Perfect.
yeah, I'll have to see if my mom has it still. It's a treat. We'll leave it at that. Maybe I'll bring it on next stream if I can find it. But to Temple of Doom, when we get to the rankings, we'll have some talks. We're gonna have some talks because I think our number one is very different.
Yeah.
You better. That's the thumbnail for this episode. Dude, I don't know if my mom has it still. I think I told her to throw that stuff away at one point in life.
Yeah, but she wouldn't. She probably has a scrapbook just like Kyle blackmail material.
Probably. So let's move on to Last Crusade. I think Last Crusade is unique amongst the three. It's probably the most standout, if anything, because of Sean Connery being added to the film.
He does. It's not like the series was stale by any means, but he adds. Yeah, Gimli is. Don't look up Gimli's opinions on things. Yeah, it's not.
Wait, what? Wait, Gimli's? I didn't know that was Gimli.
He's
holy
Sala,
shit.
Or yeah, that's Gimli.
Holy shit! How did I not know that?
Because he wasn't. He did not ask to be tossed once.
Fuck.
If Gimli had said bad dates, he would have been like, oh, okay, that's that guy.
Ooh.
Anyway, Sean Connery is really, really good in the movie. It looks like he's having fun for the last movie that he'd have fun making for.
Oh no, I think he had fun making The Rock.
Oh yeah, okay, that's fair. I'm still stuck on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
No, that's the death of the career.
Yeah, that's where it ends. But he's having fun. It's something about like I already was James Bond and he doesn't care. Like he's checked. He's checked out at a certain point. It's current era Harrison Ford, where most of the time he's just there for a paycheck, and every once in a while there's Blade Runner 2049, where you're like, oh hey, whoa, you came to play, or Force Awakens.
Yeah,
so
he was good.
Like
he was good in Force Awakens. So
yeah, but Sean Connery really pops throughout the whole movie because he literally is just playing. What is the age difference between those two? To be playing father and son, do you know? I'll Google Harrison Ford.
I'll Google Sean Connery. So Sean Connery is currently 89 years of age.
All right, so he's 78. So he would have had to be 11 when he had his child. So that's some backstory they don't really get into.
They make him look aged though, like makeup wise.
I know. I enjoy.
I would Google Sean Connery.
Sam Jackson's mom in Unbreakable and Glass that is younger than Sam Jackson, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean Connery's great. It reminds me of Temple a lot, where it's like the roller coaster ride in an aspect of just like, hey, this plot beat, we're moving around the globe, we're globetrotting. Let's do some National Treasure puzzle solving inside this little church.
Yeah, it's fun. It bounces around. Sean Connery literally just lifts the movie and makes it feel kind of fresh again with the aspect
Feels
of him.
like they nailed the tone in this one.
Yes.
What they were trying to go for in Temple of Doom.
Yeah, they found the balance, I think, the happy balance of the two. And yeah, I think at that point, Sean Connery was just doing paycheck things at that point, nothing too serious.
There's no shame in that.
No, I'd have to like look at his filmography, which I'll pull up now.
That's a whole bunch of work. Oh, okay.
No, I got it. So prior to The Last Crusade, he did Highlander in 1986.
When was Zardoz?
1974.
Okay, so yeah.
Oh, he did
Alright,
and he did the Untouchables prior to Indiana Jones. So
All right, so he's still on a hot streak.
he's still on a hot streak, and he's still he's Sean Connery. I don't know where else to put it at other than he's just Sean Connery.
It's similar to how Harrison Ford. It makes sense that. All right, I didn't want to get into it yet, but I'm going to break down how these are actually the Olympus Has Fallen trilogy. Because in the first one, you've got a really good and grounded idea of Mike Bannon, and he's got to protect the president. And then the second one, I didn't like very much. And then the third one, his dad's in it. So clearly, they're the same film trilogy.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that.
In the sense that Nick Nolte, I don't think did it better than Sean Connery, but did do it.
That's fair.
No, it reminds me of when it's not like they've run their course, but I always feel like it's a little. I mean, tropey is what they're kind of going for here when they go like, "Oh, did you know Nathan Drake had a brother?" Yeah, he didn't talk about him because of stuff. So it's like, I mean, I get that he's estranged from his father. It just always feels weird when someone just pops in to just be out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I think that the opening in this one is the actual strongest because it sets up who a person, like, even if you just watch just this movie, you would get who the core of Indiana is just from that moment. We named the dog Indiana. All right, let me go. I'm going to fight these, like, museum. Get the scar. Here's the hat.
I think it is probably the best opening, and I think young Indiana Jones, like you said, nails the tone of what Indiana is supposed
Phoenix,
to be.
Right?
Yes, that is River Phoenix. And it's actually that sequence was used to help sell the Young Indiana Jones TV show as well.
It makes sense. I never watched it, but no.
It's actually the TV show is good. It's not canon apparently, but who gives a shit?
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but the TV show is very good. Harrison Ford actually reappears in the TV show.
Oh man, that must have been a page.
As an older Indiana Jones, because he drinks from the Grail in this movie, so he lives exponentially
I've
longer.
always thought about that. Like, was it one of those where you had to retain in that space to be immortal, like the Templar was?
No, apparently
But Sean Connery's dead in Crystal Skull. There's like a grave or whatever.
He lives. Sean Connery lives. I think the thing is that Sean Connery lives a bit longer. He just doesn't die. He lives a little bit longer, but because the Grail won't make him live as long because he's used to heal him from death already.
You know, it's funny because I was going to say, this just feels like some Lord of the Rings stuff, where you look it up and there's all this information that you didn't know about, but then I realized that's the Bible. The Bible's the first Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The Silmarillion is just the Bible.
Oh, shit, Quantum, congratulations on getting the t-shirt. Thank you again for buying the shirt. I greatly appreciate that. And I'm glad it arrived on time. I have merch.
I do think that the Holy Grail is a really good MacGuffin for any movie, for any story.
It's the ultimate quest item, like, that you're trying to find.
It really works for that.
Are you trying to bait Mike? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, it's not even making fun of Lord of the Rings. It's just literally like, did you know that Shelob could shapeshift? No? Well, you should read this. Did you know the exact specifications of what the Holy Grail did? No? Read the Bible.
So
you won't do it.
You're right, I won't. Emily and I are going to finish Return of the King on Wednesday, finally. And I had to text Mike at one point, because Mike's like the encyclopedia of Lord of the Rings knowledge for me.
Silmarillion.
I had to be like, hey, how old is Gandalf? And I think in like less than a second I had a response of his exact age and date of birth.
1,000 or something? Right?
He's over 1,000.
Yeah.
And then I had to ask...
That's what I mean. It's like, that's just a fact that you have to learn. Like, if you watch those movies and they're just 7,000.
7,000, holy shit.
Of course, he's 7,000.
What about Monty Python and the Holy Grail? So
I don't know which one I'd rank over each other if I had to pick one Holy Grail movie for the rest of my life.
Last Crusade. I think I'll get more enjoyment out of Last Crusade.
Yeah, but like Monty Python. That's really the only argument. Is like, you've seen that movie.
It's fair. It's nothing but a flesh wound. So
I also love the one of the early. Obviously CG. Unless they did really build that weird dumb walkway that looks like an illusion. Only if you're standing at a very specific angle. which like works if you just like accept that it's a movie and you
I-
let go.
I
But like, it doesn't
believe-
make any sense.
That's a practical
If it
effect.
looks- But if it looks like that, at the exact angle you'd be looking at it, if you went and like just moved your head around, you'd go like, oh, it doesn't match with those rocks underneath. It's not a matte painting under there. This is a matte painting. This Death Star does have a bottom. We're in a green screen. He's just sidling around it like a goof.
I'm actually looking up how that was made, because I believe that is actually a practical effect.
It looks cool. It just is one of the... I mean, and at that point, they're about to talk to a Templar who knew Jesus. So, like, I guess if this is where all of a sudden my immersion broke, it doesn't really matter.
I'll have to look it up,
We've
but
already-
I
Okay.
was going to say, I'll have to look it up, but I believe that was actually a practical effect. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries. I was reading chat. But back to Last Crusade. I'll agree with you. I'll concede that's the best opening of the three.
You wanted to talk about the boat sequence? I think that's one of the more outstanding...
That's probably one of the coolest sequences, I think, of the movie.
It definitely feels like a James Bond-esque
yes.
moment.
Yes, it definitely feels like a James Bond-esque moment.
With Sean Connery.
With Sean Connery, and that's what makes it really good. And I guess I enjoy how much globetrotting happens in this movie compared to the other two.
That's why it feels like the Mission Impossible-ish J.J. Abrams, like, bouncing from location to location. Let's meet Hitler for a second. You know, crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate from the opening sequence how it then snaps into him on the boat with the rain. That's such a cool, like, look to it. And he's getting the cross back from the very beginning of the movie. It's, like, all very, very well done. And him then having to use his father's journal to find where his father is and do everything. Just kind of, like, it is... I can't wait to do the rankings, because it's not number one for me, just so we're clear.
No, me either.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. It's the of the three, if you ask me which one I would want to watch, I'd probably always pick Last Crusade, but it's not my number one.
It's definitely... All three of these are, like, watchable movies. Like, I don't... Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes. But, you know, I think rankings talk can be rankings talk. But, yeah, I No Ticket is one of the best lines in a movie. Like, that's one of the best one-liners.
Yeah, it's a very good one-liner. Hitler autographing the book is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Like, it has a lot of weirder things than... I mean, I guess they're going for the Holy Grail. So that's what I always found interesting about the movie that shall not be named, but I'll name it Crystal Skull.
We're going to talk about it after this one. It is in the notes to talk about it.
Well, I will say that, like, it's weird that people are like, aliens, that's stupid. But the cup that Jesus drank from, that's real. So, like, you know...
Or the magical stones that heal your village.
Historical. Yeah, like, you know, all of it is based on myth to some degree. So it feels weird to be like, aliens are stupid. It's like, well, if you're this far in and you think just this is dumb.
Crystal Skull has its own problems that which we'll get to in a little bit, because I think one of the things in my notes is Last Crusade probably has some of the best moments out of the three going for it, and a lot of that I think has to do with the chemistry between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I agree. I think, speaking of... It's weird that a plot point, Arrested Development style, is like, oh yeah, we both had sex with that lady.
Oh, God.
Like...
yeah, it's in my notes. I was waiting for it to come up.
Yeah.
It's weird. It doesn't need to be in the story. It doesn't bring any value to it at all.
It's like they're like, well, I mean, you know, Indiana Jones's dad can't be as cool as Indiana Jones. And then they're like, yo, he fucks, though. And they're like, he fucks? Oh!
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's so... I don't know what they're going for.
It's the same thing with the underage line in Raiders. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't add anything to the characters other than, oh, Indiana Jones fucks, but so does his dad!
That was on the poster. So does his dad, Sean Connery.
Ooh.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just, it doesn't need to be there. If it's just Indiana sleeping over, fine, whatever. That's just building the myth that is that character, I guess.
And I will say there's snakes in the first one,
Mhm.
bugs in the second, and then rats in the third.
Yes.
I find it interesting that they're like, well, what's in an Indiana Jones movie? And they're like, a lot of animals.
A lot of
So you gotta
animals.
pick some kind of animal that creeps people out and put 1,000 of them someplace.
Yeah, it is not fun. Also, the departure of Short Round is weird after going from Temple to this.
But Temple happened before Raiders, so he just stopped hanging out with that small child at some point. And
No,
went to
yeah.
America to get a job at
a university.
That, I don't know how university. I wonder what his like time off is like, because it seems to me he's a world-renowned.
He goes on archaeological
artifact
digs.
dealer.
That's what he does. Yeah. So they don't question what he's doing. They're like, oh, he's off digging in Honduras, collecting these unique antiquities for our vault. But yeah, I like Last Crusade. It's hard to like really open up about it because I think it's the least flawed of the three.
It's an interesting take.
It's in terms of its story, it's the least flawed. In terms of filmmaking, it's as good as the other two.
No, I definitely think it's still good. I mean, honestly, I'd watch any of these three most days of the week. Henry Jones is such a goofball, but also he's just a dick, and I feel like they never have that moment where he apologizes for being a dick for like 40 years.
I remember in the not late 90s, but like 93, 94, they were trying to get a fourth movie made because my mom was like talking about it when I was growing up, and Harrison Ford wanted a shit ton of money, if I remember correctly, and they wanted to bring back Sean Connery as well, who also wanted a shit ton of money.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
The Star Trek 4 conundrum of like, we want Thor and Chris Pine. We can't afford either of them.
I feel like in that time period, archaeological digs and excavations were so much more common, kind of the same way we are focused on space now. That's pretty accurate.
That's fair. I also don't know how like 401ks worked in 1944, so I feel like I have a lot of questions.
For sure.
But
let's move on to the fourth film, which I did not rank. It is technically dead last on my rankings. I'll just say that right now. Yeah. Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Sponsored by Dan Aykroyd, Crystal Skull Vodka.
How do you feel about that movie? Because I didn't watch it until, a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever I moved into the apartment with you guys.
I think when I first saw it in theaters, I saw it at the drive-in, and I remember just like, I would be fine if we went home now. Because like, from the beginning, I love Cate Blanchett. Whenever she's campy, it's hilarious, and she's having fun in this movie, and she's fun to watch. But once you get to like him and his buddy, and there's like fight scenes and choreography where Harrison Ford has to run, it just makes you feel. It's kind of like Jay and Silent Bob reboot, where you're like, oh man, it's still here doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity because that movie is almost a decade too late at its point in life. Because Harrison Ford, I think in the early to late 90s, I think is better fit to do that movie and better looking to do that movie.
Yeah. I mean, I get the idea behind parts of the movie of him passing the torch to, obviously, it's his kid. Is, there's something there. But I think between, like, it's cool that you got Marion back, but had Marion really been doing stuff? It feels like, the fridge scene. There's multiple, that's the thing, is it, okay. Indiana Jones 4 is kind of like Batman v Superman, in as much as I couldn't tell you it's a good movie. But there's so many weird choices that it's worth watching.
It's
like the CGI prairie dogs that are there just to distract your eye as he drives into the 50s or the 50s fake town just so he can literally climb into a fridge. Which I was just listening to. I don't know if it was Fat Man on Batman Fat Man Beyond. There was some Midsummer is fantastic. There's some older Indiana Jones script where literally it was him climbing into the fridge. Like, that's an old Spielberg, like, that was in a script that he had wanted to do for years.
If I had to guess, it's probably whatever they tried to make in the 90s. Like, probably whatever this movie is rehashed from that.
I'd have to look it up, but it was, like, in Raiders or something, and they cut it out. And it's like, oh, well, it's just weird when, kind of like that one footage from Bad Boys 2, that they then use in Transformers and every Michael Bay movie. It's interesting to think of like, what's the one thing that sticks in someone's craw, and they go like, no, I want to use that. In Michael Bay's case, it's I want to use that 100 times. But it's weird that because like nuking the like, I'm already gonna try to pretend to buy that like what he's, let's say 30 in the 40s, and this is set in the 80s, so he's extremely old.
Your mic.
I don't know, it's like if at the end of Endgame old Steve Rogers like had fight scenes and like was out there doing stuff. It seems odd that like throughout the whole movie, besides of like the Die Hard 5, oh I'm getting old, I can't do this, or Lethal Weapon, they don't really comment on the fact that like not only are you old, but what you're doing is antiquated because we don't go to places and take their culture. Actually, no. There's this ancient hidden civilization with alien stuff in it, and a lot of ants. The ants are scary.
Yeah,
Swing on these Tarzan vines, Shia LaBeouf.
So here, I will break my thoughts of this movie down as best I can. One, it doesn't need to exist. It never needed to be made. You could have just left it alone. But money was on the table, and that's how that works. So then going forward, I think Harrison Ford is still fine to do that role, but it wasn't structured around him or how old he was at that time. And
like the idea of when he's talking to the janitor from Scrubs, and there's like the G-men that are like, hey, you've gone all over the place. You know, you fought in the war. There could be an interesting story there of like, hey, it's the 80s, the Cold War. How does that affect? No, it's fine. Let's go. There's aliens. We gotta find aliens.
Yeah, there's
John Hurt here.
There's a way to do it, and there's a way to make it work correctly for everyone, and it was a missed opportunity. And then getting Marion back is fine, I guess. Like you said, what is she doing though? Like, does her character need to be there? And then
she has to be there because they had sex a long time ago, and there's a Shia LaBeouf.
And one, it's pandering to fans, bringing her back because fans like her character, and then Shia LaBeouf is a clear indication of a time and a place for him to be in that movie at that time. He
was being Jai Courtney.
They
were putting him in everything.
Because at that
Sam
point,
Worthington as well.
Yeah, because at that point he had done Eagle Eye, Disturbia, and the first Transformers movie, I think. So like,
this was the big Shia blitz.
Yeah, Shia is just like blowing up as an actor at this point, so he has to be in the movie because he does. Of course, he does.
Not like
he's fine. He's fine. And Holes.
Holes. Well, everyone knows about Holes. That's why we didn't mention it.
Yeah.
There's Holes, and then we thought of other ones.
And like, he's fine.
Stanley Yelnats. Sorry, go ahead. He's
fine as Mutt, but he doesn't.
His name is Mutt.
Yeah,
he's just a he's a.
But he doesn't. I get it.
Lazy.
I get it's a passing of the torch. It just feels he doesn't feel like the right successor at that point in time.
Well, also, it never even felt like they were trying, until the end where he puts on the hat, it never felt like they were trying to set up a follow-up series of Shia LaBeouf movies. It just felt like they were like, oh, wouldn't it be something if he started to do what his dad did? Because we're a movie. This is a movie. I don't think any of the Indy 5 talk has Shia LaBeouf returning.
No. And my biggest...
They got married at the end of that. Him talking to Marion like, hey, remember 40 years ago? Or at this point, I guess Shia is that age, so however many years ago. Yeah, let's get married. That seems like something Indiana Jones would do.
And
did you know Indiana Jones had a mom? I didn't. He's never mentioned her once.
No, never. And one of the things for me is that movie, Crystal Skull,
right?
looks so sterilized compared to the other three.
It's definitely more CG, more prequels-esque of. Like I said, the CGI prairie dogs that are popping out by the
Wait, is Crystal Skull set in the 80s? I thought it was 1954.
Yeah, I think I got Cold War confused, because it turns out that ran for a long time.
Yeah, it's late 50s, early 60s, I think Crystal Skull takes place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also, like I said, like you said, it's so CGI heavy, it's extremely sterilized looking compared to Temple Raiders and The Last Crusade. Whereas those have grit to them and how they look.
It reminds me at times of later Spielberg, Ready Player One, where it's a perfectly acceptable chase scene with the motorcycle, and it's filmed well, and it's moderately engaging, but it just feels like it goes on for just too long. Like, the entire movie just feels like, can we get to the point? And they're like, now he needs to hold on to a snake to get out of the quicksand. Remember?
And that's like, there's some cool callbacks in Crystal Skull. I'll give it that. And Harrison Ford is he's still Indiana Jones. Like, I can't deny him that. It's just he's older, moves a bit slower, and the movie wasn't fit around him correctly, and it shows. And I think the scene with seeing the Ark of the Covenant again for a brief moment was kind of cool.
That's the thing, is the intro part, it's almost okay. Like, you can deal with the joke of him, like, trying to swing and then it doesn't work, and he's like, it worked better when I wasn't so old. Like, there are moments in that I think are fun, and like I said, Cate Blanchett is always fun when
she's great.
Can tell she's in a bad movie.
Yeah.
But just nothing about it is anything.
It's
like,
it's not special.
Watch it if you were like, what's a weird thing that, like, people with too much money put in a movie? And then you see Shia LaBeouf, like, swinging with the Tarzan monkeys as a bunch of fire ants eat people.
The South Park spoof of, I think it's Lucas editing all his films, and then they're finally going to edit the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
I think Crystal Skull is the definition of that joke in South Park.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time for fandom when they're like, we own this character, and they're like, all right, well, this is what he's up to now. Like, pretty much everyone is like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah,
like, I've never met anyone, like, I've met some people that like the Transformers movies, but I've never met anyone who's like, my favorite's Crystal Skull.
Transformers movies, what?
Yeah, and they're out there.
I don't like them, I've just seen all of them. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to have that one. But no, I think Crystal Skull is just disappointing, and that's why it's like, in terms of, like, there are certain movies and franchises that people just don't talk about certain entries, and this is definitely one where it's like, look, I don't want to. There's 3 Mass Effect games. There's 3 Indiana Jones.
Exactly. So let's get into the final segment, the rankings of the movies. I will
say that, like, your rankings were here in the show notes, and I did literally laugh out loud when I saw them. So you got that going for you.
Okay. All right. My number did not qualify. The Last Skull. It's there.
Crystal Skull is not. No one wants to talk about.
I literally in my notes I have DNQ for did not qualify on it. Number 3 I have Raiders. Number 2 I have Last Crusade, and my number 1 is Temple of Doom, with an asterisk next to it, which I'll get to in my debate conversation point of it. But what are yours, and then we'll go from there.
It's literally the opposite. It's number 1 is Raiders. Number 2 would be Last Crusade, and number 3.
So just swap my 1 and 3 around.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think Temple of Doom adds nothing. Like, literally, if you had to take one of those out and tell someone this is what Indiana Jones is, take Temple of Doom out, because all it adds is the, like, other culture. He's got to go in and save stuff, and a screaming lady, and the kid from the Goonies.
If I have to show a 10-year-old one of these...
Kali Ma is cool. But,
hang on. If I have to show a 10-year-old one of these movies, I'll show them Temple of Doom, because that'll hold their interest longer than Last Crusade.
I didn't know we were ranking them for 10-year-olds.
I
had to adjust. No, I know.
So I got to defend my point.
Definitely, that's what I mean. It's like a fun roller coaster ride, and it definitely propels it through. But, like, so much of it
I think
flat. Whereas, like, literally no scene in Raiders outside of the one where he's like, "You were 16, that was rad." But, like, outside of that, there's nothing like. Go ahead.
No. So the reason it's number 1, and there's an asterisk by it, because it's a problematic movie. I will always admit it's a problematic movie with its atmosphere and tone. However, it's the whole second half of that movie is better than Raiders for me and Last Crusade. It's because it's, like you said, it's such a roller coaster ride. That is the definition of an adventure movie for me, is that whole, like, Kali Ma onto the cart mine, onto the bridge. Like, all leading up to all of that is what makes that for me.
I think the difference for me is I like the character moments more, like who Indiana Jones is, setting up even in Raiders, like him as a school teacher and actually showing what his theoretical life would be like before going on an adventure. That
are we both wrong in Last
Covenant? Like, no, Last Crusade is not my favorite.
I was going to say, then we're both wrong, and Last Crusade's number 1.
I could live with... No. I could live with Raiders, then Temple of Doom, then Last Crusade. And then I could live with Raiders, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom. But like, I just don't understand. There's literally no part of Raiders that falls flat.
I guess the problem is I like all three of them, and I
Like,
can.
it's a movie where, outside of Doctor Strange, I've never seen a movie where the good guys win by just not doing anything. They just look away. They're like, you know what, you guys, you made your bed. Go ahead, enjoy your cosmic horrors. We're just gonna.
Yeah,
All right, cool.
it's
like, it's not. He doesn't have to, punch harder or feed a guy to alligators.
No, that's fair.
Meet Hitler.
No. He just looks away, and it's I like Raiders. Raiders is a good movie. It's just I don't like how Marion becomes damsel in distress in the second half. She literally changes out of dresses multiple times, and she's just is there to be rescued. She's an object to be rescued.
She has that one scene that's kind of like Jasmine in Aladdin, where she like does her thing and she's gonna stab him.
Yeah, that's fine.
Willie is just nothing. Like, that's not a character. That's nothing.
Okay.
She's just a lady.
No, Willie's a knock. I can't defend
like,
Willie.
The Three's Company sex comedy parts of it, like, I just don't enjoy that. Anything Willie says. Short Round, they never really explain, like, she doesn't, I mean, they don't get into how is he friends with this small boy.
They explain him.
At least Last Crusade has, that we didn't bring it up, that tank sequence where he's riding the horse and, like, going across and climbing onto the tank.
That's a bad sequence. Like, it's not a bad sequence. It's not as good as the other sequences in the movie.
I also agree. I don't like it that much, but I was using it to argue against
yeah.
Temple of Doom. So
I was about to say, like, it's not a great sequence.
It runs on too long and it's very goofy. I think that's my thing. Is I think that the tone of Raiders is what sells it for me. The characters, the moments, the action of that movie. Whereas the other ones feel very much like, come on a crazy adventure. Whereas the first one really does feel like, oh, he wants to get that object, oh, he's going here, he's doing this, and then it's like, oh, about halfway through, he's like, oh, wait, no, that's the actual Ark of the Covenant. Like, we shouldn't be here. They're going to make some choices that we should not be party to. We have to go home, as opposed to, I have to fight this cult leader, and I'm not saying this is bad either, on a bridge, and tear his heart out.
Dude, the cult leader literally tries to rip his heart out on the fucking bridge. It's so good.
Yeah, it is good.
No.
I think everything else about Temple of Doom
I think if I were to change my rankings, I would bump Raiders to second. It'll never get to 1 because I like that mysticism of
we need
Temple of Doom a bit more. Whereas Raiders is grounded but has enough like mystique going on for it. If that makes sense. Like it feels grounded up until the point when the Ark of the Covenant gets open, then it's buck wild from there.
True. I just don't think anything about the Temple of Doom cult is interesting. They're just there. They don't get into like what they're doing. I also feel like if we're at Temple versus Raiders, neither of us are going to acquiesce. So I don't know if we have to ask the chat.
There's
like, no, Temple of Doom is not better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's facts.
Hang on.
That's facts. Like,
I got this.
Last Crusade, I don't care. But like, Raiders, like, the music. You can have all 3 of those movies, but like the music came from like all of that.
Hang on, I'm putting a poll up, guys. Okay. You guys are more than welcome to vote. I'm going to leave this up for 2 minutes. It's plenty of time for you guys. So there is a vote. You are all welcome to vote. And yeah, we'll give it 2 minutes. Because I don't think like you said, either of us are going to budge on.
No, it's kind of a tough one to.
Yeah, so because I can probably go back and forth in my head mentally of which one is the best. But I think I'm going off of the nostalgia factor, and I watched it literally last night. It's the freshest in my head of the 4 of Watchmen, and I still enjoyed it like I did when I was a kid. But I am able to at least acknowledge the inherent flaws of it, at the very least.
Which one? I'm getting them confused now. Which one between 1 and 3 had the fight with the big muscly Nazi that got turned into mist from a helicopter?
From a helicopter? Are you talking about the?
Or not a helicopter, Jesus. Plane.
The
Plane. Those are called planes.
the first one.
Oh, the first Raiders has that awesome moment. Interesting. Like, I just think so many parts of Raiders are what Indiana Jones is.
Oh,
Temple
fuck.
of Doom is what he tries to not do anymore. Like, they could have brought Willie or Short Round back in the third one. Instead, they went, he's got a dad, and Gimli's back.
Yeah, no, it's...
Like, Gimli is a better side character than either of the side characters in Temple of Doom. There's a little monkey. Well, the monkey
I wasn't prepared for some of the points that were about to be brought up in this. I was like, oh, he won't use the Nazi plane sequence against me, 'cause that's a pretty good part of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, I'm here. I'm literally streaming to eventually be in a movie fight with Dan Murrell. That's all I'm here for.
We're prepping Dan to go fight Dan Murrell in a movie fight, or we can get Dan Murrell on here eventually. That's the real dream. Never gonna happen.
Goal, yeah.
But
No.
oh shit, it's tied. Hell yeah, it ends on a tie.
And I guess, yeah. All right.
Yes. That's all I can ask for.
Well, I guess all that really matters is second place is Last Crusade, and the other two are tied now.
Yeah,
Canonically.
and they're fine. The first three are fine. 4 doesn't exist, and they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, Temple of Doom is still fun. I can still picture them jumping out of the plane onto the raft and going through there's multiple stunts and set pieces that I really enjoyed. But
Yeah,
there's
there's parts that make it work. All right, let me close that really quick. But yeah, I don't know, it's fun. I had fun rewatching these and being able to talk about them again because they're such an inherent part of my childhood.
And that's the thing, is I'd still rewatch all three again, and that's not something I'd say for like every movie, because sometimes you rewatch something and go like we said for some of the problematic elements, like, oh, this really is like a product of its time, but these are timeless in a sense.
Yeah,
And I mean, obviously, if they're still trying to make 5,
and that's what
they're
I
gonna live on through cinematic history as like, some of the major franchises that
they're important. They're going to remain important pillars of filmmaking and film history in their own way. And I think what I wanted to lead up into was Indiana 5 is on the table. It's being talked about, and I assume is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years.
I think right now with Chris Pratt and all them filming Jurassic World 3, that's the test case for how movies are going to be made in the however long the pandemic lasts.
Yeah, they're still...
Because, the entire cast is octogenarians. Like, even Spielberg, what's the story? What is he going to do? He can't run around anymore. It's like Sam Jackson and Captain Marvel, where you're like, yeah, that's an old man. Like,
I don't...
unless it's somehow a super serious, art piece drama film.
Like an old man Logan type.
Yeah, Logan, but it's Indiana Jones, and he's coming to grips with everything, and he's just going like Captain America, putting the Infinity Stones back. He's returning all of these artifacts that he had in his house back to the cultures that they had. But I have a feeling it's going to be him, and this is Mutt. He's Chris Pratt now because no one likes Shia LaBeouf. We go on adventures. This time it's
it's
70s and hippies.
It's that or they retcon 4 completely, and
I think they're too prideful for that. You can do that for Halloween, where there's a bunch of them, and whatever. But you can't say Spielberg can't say forget about that one.
I think the other thing is you don't necessarily have to reboot it. You instead just have to recast.
Marianne will be dead, and Mutt went to Vietnam and died, and he's all sad now because his family's gone. But then there's one last job that brings him back. Because Gimli's back.
I've been on this island before. I was here as a kid.
Red Sea Scrolls.
No, you either reboot. You don't even reboot it. You just recast somebody to play a young Indiana Jones, and you just set piece it in some time frame of the.
I think the real answer is actually just like the Uncharted movie. Just make your own Indiana Jones, but don't call him Indiana Jones because there's too much baggage with that now.
Yeah,
it'd be like the kid who played not Ansel Elgort.
Oh,
the weird named guy that played Han Solo.
He was good though.
Aaron Reich. Yeah, but he was under so much scrutiny because he was playing Harrison Ford.
No,
if that was just a new Star Wars story and he was the character, people might have been fine with it.
But if
you're going to be Indiana Jones, I would love Oscar Isaac as Indiana Jones, but
I'd watch that movie.
I'd rather have,
No, I said I'd watch Big Gaming Robots movie.
That's Wolfenstein.
Yes, but yeah,
that's just Wolfenstein.
I think though if it was a Chris Pratt taking over the mantle, people would not care as much. Whereas Adrian Eldritch, however you say his name, was a very it was a very unknown actor at that point. His only claim to fame was Hail Caesar and a Warren Beatty movie that was not that great.
I also don't think if you were going to sign up for that movie, you want to do... I'm going to play Harrison Ford's son after Adam Driver just did it in actually a really interesting way. Those movies are those movies, but certain moments he really sells no, that's Han Solo's kid.
It's
because to try and do that for Indiana Jones, because also even if it's the story, who's in his family unless you literally go hey, we recast Mutt.
Or here, I'll paint you my opening sequence to the Indiana Jones movie. It's the 1980s. Indiana's still alive. He's basically in a retirement home at this point. His family put him there, or whoever his family is, and he shares his stories to the young custodian who works there, and his young custodian wants to go on a grandiose adventure. And you set piece it in the 80s, kind of like a Goonie style. And then you
go ahead.
I was gonna say, then you hand it off to whoever that actor is that you want to be Indiana, because it doesn't have to be Harrison Ford. It's just the name that makes Indiana Jones.
It's just going to be Nathan Drake.
Yes,
you two, Ray Indiana Jones.
Yeah, essentially, he takes on the mantle of Indiana and goes on these crusades and adventures.
Yeah, the hat and the whip are all you need.
Yes, that's generally all you need to say you're Indiana.
But I just don't know of any actor, especially after the Star Wars backlash, and who would want to pick that torch.
Do you want to know who Chris Pratt's the obvious choice. My outlier pick is Chris Pine, actually.
Yeah, I could see it. I think Star Trek probably soured him on...
Big budget. Well, no, he's doing Wonder Woman, though, so... I don't know.
Yeah, but Wonder Woman... That's easily a one and done. It turns out it's not, but it easily could have been. I think it was just that they had fun doing it that he came back. However, he's in the 80s. But, we'll know when movie
I don't think...
It opens internationally, and we have to watch cam rips of it here.
Yeah, I don't know if it, if he's signed up, if he's attached for multiple sequels when they made Crystal Skull. I don't think that was,
It easily could be possible, but I bet it's one of those that it's hey, it's an option that we can pick you up for.
It is probably lapsed at this point, too, if anything.
The backlash on this one was, I feel like the prequels still had their defenders, but, even at the time, no one coming out of that theater was man, I'm pumped. I hope they make another one of these. It was just you got punched in the gut and you were sad.
Yeah, I think the thing is, Shia LaBeouf is a much better actor than he was a decade ago.
Yeah, he makes interesting choices, that's for sure, but I don't think the Shia LaBeouf that's been in Lars von Trier films is the Shia LaBeouf that would come back and do a big blockbuster.
That Shia LaBeouf got buried in the grave.
With beans from Even Stevens.
Basically. But, yeah, I had fun talking about Indiana Jones. How about yourself?
I definitely did. What about you, audience?
Yeah, did you guys have fun tonight?
Clap the screen.
Yes, we clap. I'm excited to talk about the X-Men movies, though. I
think all of these are going to be cracking open time capsules into very specific eras of films. X-Men is... Outside of Blade, which will probably be a separate conversation, seeing as they're going to make a new one anyway.
I need to rewatch Blade too.
Fuck yeah. These are the first superhero movies that really changed the way that studios make movies. And I think it'll be interesting to talk about all the aspects, from the terrible choices in directors to the casting choices that are still relevant today, even if you recast characters. So
it's. I think the X-Men franchise is going to be a nice talking point, because the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are kind of their own thing in their own right, whereas the X-Men ones, I think, help design the template a little bit of what the Marvel movies wanted to do.
I can see that, yeah. Definitely, yeah. We'll get into it more next week, but
yeah, I'm gonna figure out who you guys want to go to so I can send you somewhere. Before we end the stream completely, But we'll be back next Monday around 8 o'clock, like we were today. And we'll I now want to rewatch American Tail with people to get a grasp on how it aged. I tried watching it with my niece, but stopped 10 minutes in because no child should watch that before they are around 10. Is American Tail really that dark? I genuinely do not remember that movie.
It's no Watership Down.
Also messed up.
Yeah.
I think I'm just... who's on that I can send you guys to that we haven't rated in a while? Tell you what, I'm gonna send you guys to my friend Plush. She does emotes and art. She is really talented, and I'm gonna get that going right now. It legit starts off with a village being ethnically purged by communists. Wait, there's communist mice in that movie? What?
Yeah, it's kind of like an analogy to Europe.
I got there.
And then the second one he goes west.
I do remember the second one. He does go west. Bible goes west.
Somewhere out there.
So yeah, this has been a Frames Per Second podcast. We will be back on Monday at 8 o'clock to talk about the X-Men movies, specifically X-Men 1, 2, and 3. If you did not catch today's episode, that's fine. This will be on my YouTube channel, or you can watch the VOD on my Twitch. You all are amazing. I will see you all next week with Dan. Thank you all for stopping by and having great commentary with us. Dan, any final words?
No.
There we go. There it is.
That's our sign off. I'm good.